All right, so here's that homework assignment. Who would like to see it again? We saw it last Monday. Anybody want to see it again? Or that's on the videos? Okay, cool. So we're going to create two files, an HTML file and a CSS files, and name the files using standard naming conventions and link the CSS file to the HTML file. So inside Go, here I have this homework folder. I'm going to create a new homework folder. So right click, new directory, 006, homework, redoing it again. I'm just going to make my Gogland a little bit bigger. And then inside here, create another directory, 01, for my first one. And then I'm going to create an HTML file. And index is the default name for an HTML file. So your main HTML file called index. And then we'll create a CSS file. And CSS is for the styling, and that is called main. Okay, it's called main. And then to link them together, right here, I use a link element. And the relationship is this is a style sheet. And it's called main. And so notice my editor gave me the tooltips for selecting that stuff. And that's really handy and useful. I could even come here and I could delete style sheet. And I could hold down Control Spacebar. And I could see the different choices. Right? Like link script for JavaScript. We'll do style sheet. And so now that that's linked, that's it. I just need to create a CSS file, create a HTML file, use the standard naming conventions, and link the CSS file. So now I'm ready to start writing some CSS. And while we're here, we'll cut a little new trail. Okay, we'll cut a little new trail. And the first thing we're going to learn about are rule sets. Rule sets. And so rule sets, and here's a comment in CSS. Rule sets are going to have a selector, some sort of a selector, and then there's going to be a code block, a declaration block. Okay, so this is a declaration block. So selector, and then this is a declaration block. All right, so that's just some of the terminology. That's not the actual syntax you'll use, but that's the terminology. You'll have selectors separated by commas. If you have more than one, you could have one or more. You separate them by commas. And you're going to have a declaration block. We often talk about code blocks being between curly braces. That's a code block between curly braces. And so the declaration block will be made up of declarations. Okay? We'll have declarations in here. And those declarations will look like this. So if I have H1 and H2, right, those are two selectors, and I could say color yellow. We'll do yellow-green. And so those will be declarations separated by semicolons. Okay? And so if I had H1, H2, I'll just call this an H1, hello. And then we had H3, and I look at this, H1 and H2 are going to be that green color. Okay? H1, H2, and then H3 is not. And the reason it's that color is because I said here, H1 and H2, my selectors selected these elements. Those are element selectors. So we could have element selectors. Those selectors selected those elements and applied this declaration. A declaration has a property and a value. So declaration has a property and a value. So if we were just continue to look at the syntax here, we would have property, value. And Shay Howe, if you want to do a little reading, Shay Howe is a really nice website, Learn to Code HTML and CSS. He's a friend of mine, well, acquaintance. I've never met him in person. And getting to know CSS. And we scroll down and we have rule set. I'll search for rule and see what comes up. That's it. Let's see if lesson 2 talks about rule sets. No rule set? He changed it. Oh well. Property value declaration. So we'd have this, right? So here we have a property and we have a value. So I just want you to know the terminology there. Selector, what I'm saying when I say selector, what I'm saying when I refer to declaration block. Declaration block has declarations. Each declaration has a property and a value. Just so you know the terminology of those different elements. So here are my selectors. Here's my declaration block. Here's a declaration. It's made up of a property and a value. And it ends with a semicolon. Okie dokie? So I was able to format those with CSS. CSS does your formatting. I changed the color. If I wanted to, I could change the size. And now they're both going to be the same size. I made them both the same size. Okay. By default, without having them given a size, the browser has some default formatting. The browser applies default formatting. H1 is going to be bigger than H2. It's going to be bigger than H3. That's interesting. So when we start styling stuff, we're going to zero out the browser's default formatting. We're just going to bring everything down to nothing, and then we'll build it up from there. Because we don't want our browsers, different browsers formatting things in different ways. Zero it all out and then build it back up. So that's something we'll do. That's called a reset, a browser reset. So that's your index file. It's the default name for HTML file. Main is the default name for a CSS file. Linking them, and then starting to style them with CSS. And we use a CSS rule set. This is a rule set, right? And a rule set has selectors and a declaration block. A declaration block is made up of a bunch of declarations. Each declaration is a property and a value, ending by a semicolon.